Hello and welcome to this edition of World at War. My name is Mohammed Saleh. China's newest and the most advanced aircraft carrier has now officially entered service this week, signaling a new era in Chinese military expansion after a ceremony that was overseen by the country's leader Xi Jinping. The Fujian is China's first domestically designed and built aircraft carrier, and the third for China's rapidly expanding navy, which is already the world's biggest by ship count. The advanced features on the new ship include an electromagnetic launch system that causes less stress to the aircraft and the ship and allows for more precise control over speed. It can also launch a wider range of aircraft than the steam system that is used on most US aircraft carriers. What is also interesting is that this aircraft carrier is one of the most high-profile signs of Xi Jinping's long-running efforts to overhaul and to modernize the People's Liberation Army. Fujian now joins the oldest Soviet-designed and built Liaoning and the second Soviet-designed but Chinese-built Shandong in active service. China now has the second most number of aircraft carriers in the world, ahead of the United Kingdom, India and Italy, who have 2 each, but it is still far behind its key rival, the United States, which has a total of 11 aircraft carriers. Our next report gets you more details.
The Fujian is China's third aircraft carrier, but it is China's first indigenously designed and built model. The vessel looks set to be a far more effective naval weapon than China's first 2 Russian-designed carriers, Liaoning and Shandong, which are smaller and rely on ramps to launch aircraft. With a flat flight deck and electromagnetic catapults for takeoffs that are only found elsewhere on the latest United States Navy Ford-class carriers, the Fujian will be able to carry significantly more and heavier armed jet fighters. President Xi Jinping presided over the commissioning and flag-presenting ceremony of the aircraft carrier Fujian that has been named after the Chinese province facing Taiwan. About 2,000 representatives from the Navy and institutions involved in the construction of the aircraft carrier took part in the ceremony.
Once the ship's technical specifications were finalized, we began our corresponding preparations for construction planning. For example, we needed to know what kind of ship it was, what its approximate composition was, what its overall mass was, and what the key technical challenges were. The steel it used is special because it is all high-strength steel. It was very difficult from processing the steel to the welding. These were all the problems we were dealing with for the first time and had to solve.
During the Fujian sea trials, the Chinese Navy launched its new carrier version of the J-35 stealth fighter and an early warning aircraft, the KJ-600, as well as a variant of its established J-15 fighter jet. Fujian's ability to carry its own reconnaissance aircraft also means that, unlike the Liaoning and Shandong, the Fujian will not be operating blind when out of the range of land-based radar support, allowing it to operate its most advanced aircraft further afield. Xi Jinping's goal is for China to have a modernized military force by 2035 and a world-class force to rival the United States by 2050. With the Fujian, Beijing has taken another significant step towards closing that gap. China's naval ambition is to dominate the waters of the South China Sea, the East China Sea, the Yellow Sea, and the so-called First Island chain around Japan, Taiwan and the Philippines. But China also seeks to challenge American dominance deeper into the Pacific. To this end, starting from 2015, China has embarked on what is being described as a shipbuilding spree unlike any that has been seen in the history of the world. According to an assessment by the US Department of Defense, China has an estimated 350 major combat vessels and submarines. In comparison, the United States is estimated to have just about 290 ships. But what has rung some serious alarm bells is the fact that the Chinese Navy isn't just getting bigger, but it's even getting better. Consider this. According to simulated conflicts conducted by the Pentagon in 2020, the United States would end up losing any war fought in the Pacific with China. China's naval power has undergone some very dramatic changes in the last 2 decades. China's growing fleet of aircraft carriers has garnered a lot of attention. As of today, China has 3 combat-ready aircraft carriers. By 2030, China is expected to possess a minimum of 6 aircraft carriers, fitted with advanced features like electromagnetic launch systems. A carrier fleet can also provide air cover for an amphibious invasion of Taiwan, or can confront the US Navy in the very first carrier versus carrier battles since the end of the Second World War. By 2028, China is expected to field 400 combat vessels, while the US Navy's goal is to have 355 combat vessels, with no fixed date to reach this target. But the numbers game can sometimes be misleading. The US Navy still deploys more tonnage on the high seas. It has bigger and heavier armed ships like guided missile destroyers and cruisers. For every 1,000 tons of displacement, an aircraft carrier can carry a fighter jet on its deck. The heavier American ships mean that the United States still has a better advantage in dominating the skies over the blue seas. Besides this, the United States has more than 9,000 vertical launch missile cells on its surface ships, while China presently has just about 1,000 vertical launch missile cells. The US attack submarine fleet of 53 submarines is entirely nuclear-powered, while just 7 of China's attack submarines are nuclear-powered, giving the US a significant edge in terms of range and endurance. What is also giving sleepless nights to the strategists at the Pentagon is the furious pace with which China is constructing its warships. Consider this: in 2019, China built more ships in 1 year of peacetime than the United States did in the 4 years of war between the years 1941 till 1945. With every passing year, China is shifting the balance of power on the high seas. It is no longer content sitting tight in the South China Sea region. By building artificial islands, militarizing them, and expanding its footprint. Beijing's forays into the Pacific Ocean and the Indian Ocean region highlight the Chinese ambitions.
Pokrovsk was long seen as a key city for the Ukrainians because of its road and rail connections. It sits on the junction of several major roads, leading to Donetsk and Konstantinivka to the east, and Dnipro and Zaporizhia to the west. The Russian forces now appear to be on the brink of finally seizing the eastern Ukrainian city of Pokrovsk, a symbolic victory that President Vladimir Putin has been pursuing for 21 months at an increasingly heavy cost. Fighting inside the city has intensified in the past few days after the Russian troops managed to successfully break through parts of the defenses. The fall of Pokrovsk will represent the biggest victory for Moscow since 2023, and it now seems almost inevitable, according to those on the ground. While Kiev has denied the Russian claims that Ukrainian forces in Pokrovsk have been completely surrounded, saying that active operations stopping the Russian advance are still ongoing. Ukrainian soldiers on the ground, though, have described an increasingly grim reality. So what really is the situation on the ground in Pokrovsk? Our next report gets you the details.
This video released by the Ukrainian military shows the fighting that is currently unfolding in Pokrovsk. Deep State, a Ukrainian project that maps the front lines based on verified open-source images, has shown that Russian forces have now pushed further into Pokrovsk and its environs. though it shows much of it to be still in gray beyond the firm control of either side. Pokrovsk had a pre-war population of over 60,000 people, but most civilians have already fled. Capturing Pokrovsk could give Moscow a platform to drive towards Kramatorsk and Sloviansk, the two biggest remaining Ukrainian-controlled cities in the Donetsk region, which Russia wants to capture in its entirety. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky acknowledged that Pokrovsk is under severe pressure, but his military said that Russian troops are still not in full control of any district.
We also had a detailed discussion with the Commander-in-Chief and the Chief of the General Staff about the situation at the front in all directions. The most difficult situation right now is in the Pokrovsk direction. As in previous weeks, that is where the fighting is most intense with a strong concentration of Russian forces. The occupiers are trying by all means to hold their positions. Every eliminated occupier there is a result for the entire state.
Це результат для всієї нашої держави.
The Russian military's use of small units and UAVs has made it harder for Ukraine to resupply and defend its positions, especially as troops must traverse long distances on foot to reach the front lines. Russian forces have used a pincer movement to almost fully encircle Pokrovsk and have threatened Ukrainian supply lines, and then harried the Ukrainian forces by sending in small units and drones to disrupt logistics and to sow chaos to their rear. If Ukraine withdraws, it will be difficult for it to extract its forces from areas south and east of nearby Myrnorod, deep inside a pocket created by Russia's slow encirclement. Despite Pokrovsk's importance, the cities of Sloviansk and Kramatorsk still remain Ukraine's most vital strongholds in Donetsk. The two cities have served as key centers for command, logistics, and control of the front lines since 2022. And even if Russia cannot capture western Donetsk directly, daily drone and glide bomb strikes have made life increasingly difficult for civilians there. Russia wants to take the whole of the Donbas region, which comprises of the Luhansk and Donetsk provinces. Ukraine now controls just about 10% of Donbas, an area of about 5,000 square kilometers in western Donetsk. Russian President Vladimir Putin says Donbas is now legally part of Russia, but Kyiv and the West have rejected Moscow's seizure of the territory as an illegal land grab. For the Ukrainian soldiers who are fighting on the front lines, the situation could not be more desperate.
Поки що складною, ще не критично.
So far, it's difficult. Not critical yet, but it's difficult. It will be more difficult if there is a greater accumulation of Russian military personnel, and if it drags on and turns into street battles in the winter.
Вуличні в зиму. Зараз критична проблема в тому, що піхота може перебувати на позиції там по 50 днів.
Now the critical problem is that infantry can remain in a position for 50 or more days only because it is impossible to conduct a normal rotation. The sky is controlled by both us and the enemy. So yes, this is the problem. It is impossible to change the personnel in the position every 15-20 days, no matter how much we would like. Sometimes infantry has to stay in a position for 50-60 days.
Доводиться там піхоті перебувати по 50-60 днів на позиції.
The Russia-Ukraine war is showing no signs of coming to an end. Negotiations have been stalled. Ukraine is lobbying to get the long-range Tomahawk missiles. But in Europe, the fear that the Russian war machine won't stop at Ukraine has assumed a whole new reality. Under Donald Trump, America's support appears uncertain, and Germany is now in the process of making some real war preparations.
Also der Operationsplan Deutschland ist.
The Operation Plan Germany is, on the one hand, a plan that we can activate tomorrow if necessary. That is very important to know.
Das ist ganz wichtig zu wissen. Zweitens ist es sehr wichtig zu verstehen, dass
Secondly, it is very important to understand that the Operation Plan Germany is there to ensure that we can move NATO troops, international troops, through Germany as quickly, as efficiently, and as orderly as possible to the right location on the eastern flank, so that we can send another signal to Russia. Beware, do not dare to attack us. We are prepared.
passiert werden kann. Achtung, wage es nicht, uns an.
An end to the fighting in Sudan still seems far off, despite the paramilitary rapid support forces fighting the Sudanese army for more than 2 years endorsing a truce proposal. The government backed by the Sudanese army is yet to respond to the US-led international mediators. But drone attacks and explosions have already rocked the army-controlled capital of Khartoum. The Sudanese army has claimed that its air defenses had intercepted a swarm of drones targeting Omdurman and the northern city of Atbara. The attacks came just hours after the RSF said on Thursday that it had agreed to a humanitarian truce in Sudan proposed by the Quad nations, that is the United States, the United Arab Emirates, Saudi Arabia and Egypt. Experts, however, have expressed doubts about whether the RSF is truly ready to implement a truce and warn that it is actually preparing an offensive to capture the city of El Obeid in the south. So after 2.5 years of a bruising civil war, is Sudan finally entering into a stage where the two contending sides are ready to implement a ceasefire? Our next report gets you the details.
Less than 2 weeks ago, the RSF captured the city of El Fasher, the Sudanese army's last major stronghold in western Darfur. The takeover has been accompanied by reports of mass killings, sexual violence and looting, triggering international condemnation. There are now fears of further atrocities as the war appears to shift east towards Khartoum and the oil-rich Kordofan region. Under international pressure, the rapid support forces have now said that they are ready to consider a ceasefire, but the Sudanese army has not officially responded. Observers say the likelihood that the two sides will adhere to a ceasefire at the moment is very slim. According to reports, the Sudanese army is now focused on retaking all of Kordofan and then proceeding on to El Fasher. El Fasher's fall has given the paramilitaries control over all 5 state capitals in Darfur and parts of the south, while the Sudanese army now dominates northern, eastern and central areas along the Nile and the Red Sea. No details of the ceasefire proposal have been made public, but a senior Saudi official told AFP that the ceasefire calls for a 3-month truce, during which both sides will be encouraged to hold talks in Jeddah for a permanent peace deal.
We came up with a comprehensive plan that has a clear roadmap with a timeline. So the timeline starts with the 3-month truce, humanitarian truce that we're talking about now, and then the 9-month process, political process, and all the other details. But those are quite precise timelines. And we're glad that we're working on the first one right now, which we hope to finalize soon. I mean, the initiative regarding this humanitarian truce is a US initiative. So we came up with this proposal and we gave it to the two sides, and we're working with both sides to finalize it.
But just a day after this announcement was made, and the RSF responded positively to the terms of the ceasefire. There were loud explosions over Khartoum and Atbara, an army-held city about 300 kilometers north of Khartoum. Neither the army nor the RSF have commented on the blasts. Though the RSF has been using long-range drones to strike army-held areas since it lost control of the capital in the south, the Sudan Doctors Union have accused the RSF of shelling a hospital in the besieged city of Dilling in South Kordofan, wounding several people. In a statement, the Doctors Union said that the shelling destroyed the hospital's radiology and medical imaging department, crippling one of the region's vital healthcare facilities. Dilling has been under RSF siege since June 2023. It lies around 150 kilometers southwest of El Obeid, the capital of North Kordofan, a key crossroads linking Darfur to Khartoum. The Integrated Food Security Phase classification this week has declared that the city of El Fasher in Darfur and the town of Kadugli in South Kordofan are both facing severe famine, with more areas at risk as fighting continues to worsen across the country. The declaration of famine in the two cities follows that of the Zamzam camp in North Darfur last year by the IPC.
A group of experts announced that 2 more regions in Sudan are now facing severe famine, with more areas at risk as fighting continues to worsen across the country. The city of El Fasher in Darfur and the town of Kadugli in South Kordofan are both experiencing severe famine. That's according to the Global Hunger Monitoring Group, known by the acronym IPC.
For the common Sudanese people who are caught in this conflict, their only hope is that this war ends soon and they can go back to their homes again.
We hope that things would go back to what they used to be and for people to go back to their lands. War is not good, I swear to God. People were destroyed, youths were lost, and families were lost. We don't have anything to say, we just want the country to be fixed. We wish the country would be fixed, for people to return to their lands and to live in peace and security.
In November last year, Israel and Hezbollah had agreed to a ceasefire that sought to end over a year of hostilities. Now, despite the ceasefire agreement under a deal that was backed by the United States, France and other international mediators, Israel, accusing the militant group Hamas of trying to rebuild its forces, has been repeatedly bombing Lebanon. On the 2nd of November, Tel Aviv threatened that it will intensify its attacks against the group, with the Israeli Defense Minister Israel Katz claiming that Hezbollah is playing with fire and accusing the president of Lebanon of dragging his feet insofar as the disarmament of Hezbollah is concerned. Hezbollah, in an open letter to the Lebanese people and their leaders, has categorically rejected any political negotiations between Lebanon and Israel and has said that any such talks will not serve the national interests of Lebanon. Our next report gets you more details.
Hezbollah is a Lebanese Shia Islamist political party and militant group. In Lebanon, it was the only movement that refused to disarm after the 1975-1990 civil war, first claiming it had a duty to liberate territory occupied by Israel and then to continue defending the country. Since the eruption of Israel-Gaza war on the 7th of October, the border between Israel and Lebanon witnessed near-daily exchanges of fire between Israeli forces and the Iran-aligned Lebanese militant group. After more than a year of hostilities between Israel and Hezbollah, that included 2 months of an all-out war. A ceasefire deal took effect on 27th of November last year. Despite the November 2024 ceasefire agreement, Israel maintains troops in 5 areas in southern Lebanon and has kept up strikes. Pressured by Washington and Tel Aviv, the Lebanese government has ordered the army to devise a plan to disarm Hezbollah, a decision termed hasty and criticized by the militant group, which claims that Israel took advantage of the push. The Israeli war machine marches on, stepping up attacks in recent days. According to the Lebanese Health Ministry, on the 1st of November, at least 4 people were killed in an Israeli strike in Nabatia district in southern Lebanon. A day earlier, Lebanese President Joseph Aoun had accused Israel of responding to his offer to negotiate by intensifying its airstrikes. On Sunday, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu accused Hezbollah of attempting to rearm itself and urged Beirut to disarm the militant group.
Hezbollah continues to take hits constantly, including these very days, but it too is trying to rearm and recover. We expect the Lebanese government to fulfill its commitment, namely, to disarm Hezbollah. But it is clear that we will exercise our right to self-defense under the terms of ceasefire. We will not allow Lebanon to become a renewed front against us, and we will act as necessary.
On the same day, hundreds of people gathered in Nabatia to pay tribute to the people killed in recent days. The mourners threw flower petals onto the coffins, draped in the Hezbollah flag, and chanted, "Death to Israel, death to America." The very next day, Israeli strikes continued on southern Lebanon, killing 2 people and wounding 7 others. While Israel claimed that it targeted Hezbollah's Radwan force, locals presented a different version.
This is a commercial area. It's a civilian area. It has a lot of human traffic at this time because it's when the schools finish for the day. We are used to Israel not caring about civilians or anyone.
The carnage continued later on Thursday, when the Israeli military carried out heavy airstrikes on southern Lebanon after warning civilians to evacuate certain buildings in 3 Lebanese villages of Taiba, Tair Deba, and Aita al-Jabal. Once again, the Israeli military claimed to have targeted a Hezbollah construction team in strikes that killed 1 person and injured 3 others. but the people who bore the brunt of the Israeli strikes claimed that they were ordinary civilians who lost lives and livelihoods.
This shop was supporting 5 to 6 households, overall 5 to 6 homes. My neighbor with his own shop was supporting 4 to 5 homes. He's a blacksmith. Brother, what does a blacksmith do? For heaven's sake, chairs, tables, doors, windows, railings. What does he make? That's the blacksmith's job. They hit all of us. Praise be to God, brother. Praise be to God. Our houses are gone. No problem. We said at least the shop is left. It can make up for some of it. Now the shop is gone. Praise be to God. We're at 0, below 0. No problem.
Hezbollah, which has not fired on Israel since the truce came into force last November, reiterated its commitment to the ceasefire on Thursday, but also said that it retained a legitimate right to resist Israel. With Israel stepping up attacks on Lebanon, the situation resembles a powder keg. A little spark and the whole region could be up in flames.
And with that, it's a wrap on this edition of World at War. If you want to reach out to me with any comments, feedback or suggestions, please feel free to do so on the ID that you're seeing on your screens. I'm your host, Mohammed Saleh, and I'll see you again next week.